All right. So now that we got the colon out of the way, why don't you introduce yourself? Welcome to the Suicide Monk. What is your name, and what are some of the things? Like, I don't know much about like what you've done, or like I guess you would call it credentials. I don't really like that word, but what you've done to actually tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and then just briefly. We don't have to go into great detail, but like what has shaped you to be the person that you are today, and moving forward, because just in the conversations that we've had, you've come from a dark place, and
Mhm.
you consistently move beyond that, and you work at it. And so tell me a little bit about that, but also you've mentioned yoga and some of the stuff that you do, but really, how do you maintain who you are today, and how are you improving, and all those good things? And we'll have a conversation as we go, but yeah, I mean, who are you?
Who am I? I ask myself that question all the time, especially when I'm in deep psychedelic spaces. I'm like, what is life? What is my name? So,
Yeah.
my official government name is Yvette Velasquez. I love the nickname Evie because it just feels a little bit more casual.
Yeah.
It feels just a little bit less like Yvette. I don't know. I feel like when somebody calls me Yvette, I'm like at attention, ready to go. Like, what are we doing? Are we
Time to get
working?
to work.
Like, am I teaching you something? Like, what hat should I put on that one? So I love Evie as a nickname. But I guess so. I'm a New Yorker. I'm first generation, born and raised in New York.
Where's your
First
family
generation.
from?
My mom is from Ecuador, and my dad is from Colombia. My dad was a farm boy raised with 12 brothers and sisters. My mom with 13 brothers and sisters, and they decided at a very young age to come to the States to build a better life for themselves. My mother
Yeah.
fled from a very abusive father, and her mom fled from a very abusive father, and then they went to a sister that had an abusive husband, so like they just needed to create a different life, and my mother came to the States to bring her mother, to be able to flee from that world, and just knew that there was a better way, and that's exactly what she did. And my dad, he came as a young boy and he did busboy and whatever, and then he created a life for himself as an entrepreneur. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs because they just kind of like hustled their way. And my dad created a life where he's now retiring, in a very comfortable way. He's more of a gypsy than I am. But the
Hmm.
one thing that I appreciate about, so I was the firstborn. I'm me and my sister, and now she has a daughter. So there's three of us because my niece came when my sister was 19, and she just inserted herself into the mix, and I like she's like a little baby sister, but like
Yeah.
not really a sister, like a niece.
Right.
So
Right.
it's confusing at times, but she's the light of all of our lives because she brings character and robustness to the dynamic.
Well,
Um,
that's the nature of your culture, right? Like, family is very important, so it's very much like when you have cousins and nieces and nephews, it is brother and sister. Like, everybody's looking out for everybody. Like, there's just cultural difference than what I would have grown up with.
right, but so my mother would have ideally loved to be an American.
Right.
My mother had she's not diagnosed because my in Latin culture it's very prideful to go get help. Like
Oh, yeah.
I was being abused very 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 young. I was the one that got abused, because my mother, she has stuff like, undiagnosed stuff that I currently, in my work now, healing, right? My therapist is like, well, you should look at this book, and then this book will give you the answers to this, and maybe you can relate. So like I now understand that my mother has some sort of borderline situation just through her own trauma that she experienced in her life that she doesn't want to unpack. And she's like 80, so she doesn't have to unpack it now. She wants to
Right.
like live that way. Like, God bless. Like, that's the way you want to go. Like, which creates friction with both of us. I'm just like, let me heal you. No, 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 no healing. Okay, like I respect the space that, thank God, we do not share anymore, right? Like, like I'm like, come love me. She's like, no, bitch, get away. Like,
Yeah. Stay in your box.
Stay out there, over there. Like I just, it's too close to home. Like I don't want to see it. You just go over there. So, my mother raised me and my sister, separately, just not separately, like in the same household, but just like it was division. Like somebody with borderline personality, they need to separate people so that this way they can create teams so that everyone's
Sure.
against each other. Like that's just
Yep.
how the dynamic is. She would not want us to gang up on her. She wanted us to gang up on each other. So my sister and I did not have a like the most unified relationship. Just through the dynamic of what it was. And my dad, the way that he grew up was that, my grandfather would leave the house at like 5 a.m. and go the day to work, and he would come home and like play with the kids. So the same thing was with my dad. He would go work and then he would want us to play with him because he was paying the bills. And,
Oh,
we were living in a house. So it wasn't really that exciting. It was
right.
almost traumatic, right? It was like, so there's a lot that me and him have been unpacking through my own plant medicine journey, post plant medicine journey, because I'm able to have these conversations with him in an educated
Nice.
way with my own healing. Because he's still in a loop. Like sometimes, like we've had conversations where, I'm like, yeah, but I'm not 10. I'm not 13 and I'm not 16, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Like literally multiple conversations over the same loop, over the same topic. And it's like,
Yep.
but we need to live right now. Like right now in
Right.
this moment, I am no
Yep.
longer over there. Can we work on the now? And so that's been very powerful just because through my own healing, I've been able to find the words for it.
Mm.
But the way that the dynamic was that at 6 years old, when my sister was born in Colombia, because they were born in Colombia, um, my parents decided, you know how you send your kids to camp? They would send me to Colombia to live in Colombia from the age of 6 years old till like 15 every summer for 3 months. Like, God bless, like, go. So, I
With your
mean,
grandma or what?
yeah, with my grandmother, with my aunts, because like there's like a million brothers and sisters, and so they really wanted me to keep my Latin culture. And my very
Mm.
first language was Spanish, so I
Yeah.
taught my parents English through the school system. But I was raised in a household where Spanish was the dominant language, so they wanted me to like read in Spanish. They wanted me to speak in Spanish. They wanted me to be part of that, keep that culture with me.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, that created a monster because I can just jump on a plane, like fall asleep on a plane and wake up somewhere else, like jumping on a bus or jumping in a car now at, at an older age. But
I don't think
it's,
that's a bad thing. I think that's a wonderful thing.
I had a conversation with one of the guys on our team today. Like it seems just a little avoidant. I'm like, I'm not avoidant. I am not trying to run away from life. I actually create life in different
Yeah.
spaces
And you have that
because
ability.
it's great, but it's intentional. It's not like I'm going and I'm backpacking. I tried
Right.
backpacking once, scared the shit out of me. I was like, I'm too old for this shit. I'm going to like get a hotel.
I'll go with you. I love backpacking, especially across the
No, I mean, like
countries.
I bring a backpack, but then like so because of the custom of being able to like go visit my family, I've always had friends all around the world.
Hmm.
Like, and I'm one of those people that I'll meet someone on a plane and I'll invite them to come out in New York because it's great. New York is wonderful. Like New York
Yep.
City, I'm plugged in. Like I'm able to be like, hey, I can take you wherever to do whatever. Like, let's get 2 a.m. massages if you want, because I love New York that much that anybody that comes from anywhere in the world, they're like, hey, Yvette, like, what, you around? It's like, yes, let me show you the world.
When again, we go back to your culture. That's part of the Spanish culture, in that is Colombia is Spanish, right? Is that, am I
Yes,
correct in
Latina,
that?
Latina.
And my experience in Spain is that is the culture of the Spanish people at heart. My experience in Mexico is similar, but not as Spanish as.
Because Spain is Spain on the other side of the world. I'm in South America, down south. So
Hmm.
we did get some of that from them. Colombian culture actually is a lot, is even, it's like on steroids. Like you go to
Really?
Colombia, Like my dad, and not even just Colombia. Like my family's from Medellin. Medellin, the paisa. That's the like, if you want to say like a New Yorker, like that's the paisa is people from Medellin. Like that's the town. It's a little valley. We are like you. There's not a mean person that you'll meet. I mean,
See, and I love that.
they'll rob the shit out of you.
Right.
Like
It's a poor
Pablo
culture, but
Escobar will like kill you, but like you look at Pablo Escobar, who's from fucking Medellin, right? And he had like everybody on fucking lock because that's the Colombian Medellin culture. Like
right,
it's just this like warmth of like, how can I best help? I want to make sure that you're okay. Do you want a little coffee? Maybe a tea? Would you like something to eat? Like how where can I take you next? Like that's us. That's just yeah,
huh?
that's very much us. So
Yeah.
that's my dad and that is me. And it's it's who it's where I went to vacation for like 13 years of my life, and then I went to live there. Like I lived in
Oh
Colombia
wow.
um when I was like 19 because I was like, all right, I'm gonna go live there, and now I go back and I teach yoga in Barranquilla, which is up like I like the north a little bit more because it's by the Caribbean. But I go teach for my friends in Barranquilla and I create a life there. Like the moment I went to go teach in Barranquilla, the whole entire like tribe, like we went through a moment of crisis because I fell rock climbing a waterfall and I had to be like emergency evacuated out. Like scene out of a movie, got put in a wheelchair, like could not walk for like almost a year.
Oh my
But that
goodness.
created a beautiful dynamic where like none of them forget that, like at all.
The great stories.
They actually are concerned. They're like, where's Yvette? Is she okay? Is she climbing any waterfall? But yeah, that is that's how I've been able to just cultivate community all over the world because I was able to do that. Like I was pushed to do that from a very young age. Um and it was because it actually kept me safe because of the family trauma. Like,
Hmm.
I was able to know that even if I like the year was fucked up or like I had a hard time or me and my mom were just having a hard time, like I could go and I could find safe space with my family, out and it wasn't like they were like the most amazing cousins in the world that they didn't,
Right.
you know, that we didn't fight or, I didn't have experience things that were hard there, right? Like I remember my grandmother gave me so the way that they don't usually use washing machines, especially in like summer
Mm.
homes or like fincas. So they have maid service, but obviously like I don't have maids in New York. So my mom would make sure that like I wouldn't just give the maid everything to clean, that I would have to clean it myself. So I remember they gave me a rock and a concrete like thing, and they gave me some like detergent, and they were like, all right, now you're gonna wash your clothes. And I'm like, I'm gonna wash my clothes with what? Like this rock and just like arm like elbow grease? What the fuck?
I did that the other day.
Right? I mean, like you're a child. You're a 10-year-old from Long Island. You're like, what are you doing?
I literally did that the other day. I I got some shit on. I got some stuff on my shirt, and I was like, well, I can't put it in the washing machine. It's full, and I need to get this out. So I just went and scrubbed it, like old
You had a
school.
choice, but you had a choice,
That's
right?
true. That is
Right.
true.
Imagine not being gifted a choice or like given a machete to like go cut the grass.
Yeah, just make a path through the jungle.
Pretty much. Yep. Done that
Yeah,
many
yeah.
times. So I go back to like, I've done the grassroots stuff, and it's like even when I did my healing work, because there was a moment where I like just let go of everything. You let go of your identity when you're like really in the deep work. I let go of all of my lovely things that I really love, my creature comforts. So I was like, I want to start from base one. Like I want to like not make any money and just like be peaceful with myself. And
Hmm.
then I'm like, you know what? I actually like my Nespresso. My
Yeah,
Nespresso is actually, it's quite enjoyable. Like I'm just gonna buy that back.
yeah.
I lied.
You're westernized. It's hard to give it up.
you start looking at the things that you actually love, but
Yeah.
you come at it from a different way where it's not like I'm not a slave to the fact that I need, you
Right.
know,
Yes.
it's that I want, and I can
Yep.
choose to want in alignment working the way that I did.
Yep.
And so with work, I went and lived in Colombia, studied fashion because my uncles have textiles. Textiles are a big thing in Colombia, so they had textile companies. And so when I came back from Colombia, I studied fashion and worked in fashion. Saw that it was just not my thing. But at that point, I had already found yoga because I was, in Colombia at 19 doing transcendental meditation, which was taking me to really beautiful states. But you would do it 3 hours a day, which when you come back to New York, that's not really like time feasible, right? Like
Right.
it's a different
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yes.
So I found Bikram yoga, and Bikram yoga would take me in 90 minutes, where transcendental meditation would take me in 3 hours a day.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so it was really beautiful to be really aligned and attuned in my body. And then I was bartending, right? Because I've always been a hustler. So I was bartending, working in fashion, doing yoga. And then at some point, I met a guy. We spent a really long time together. We spent like close to 15 years together. We
Oh
never
wow.
got married, but
Yeah.
like, he was a guy in my life that he's still impactful, still a friend. But like, we just don't jam out as a partnership. It just didn't work out. It was a time and a space, and it was powerful in that way. But I lost my job in fashion, and I lost my job in bartending. And because I had seen like the correlation with, like, I had gotten a little curvy because I was dating, right? So like he would take me out to dinner, and I was just getting curvier. And I lost my job because I was overweight. I was making ridiculous money. Like we're talking like 2 grand a night bartending, like just at a nightclub, right? Like,
Oh my gosh.
or 3 grand, 5 grand sometimes. Like, it's just, that's the New York City nightlife. Like, so it's hard to like remove that
Yeah.
part from life. It's like, it's just the money. You'll sell your soul for money, right? um Especially if you're in it in that way. And I I lost my job in fashion because I got one of my girlfriends to get a job in the company. And because I was just so busy focusing on another project, that I was like, yeah, just come in. Like there's abundance. I'm always been that way, just
I
like
lost you.
helping friends. And she was more qualified for the position than I was, but I was too busy focusing on another project. And when the other project funded, there was no longer a position. So I lost my job in that way. And it was like an overlap of like, wow, I'm 24 at the time, I think, 23. I don't know. I was really young. It's like, if I'm going to be fighting this kind of battle at, like, what about 34? What about if I'm having kids? Like, that doesn't feel like this is the right, like, there's no safety in this position. There's no guarantee
Mm.
leaving bartending and waitress
Yeah.
and
Yes.
fashion.
Yep. That's right.
I just saw the correlation with, like, I just didn't want to have that kind of competition because fashion is very fickle, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
bartending is like legit. It's restaurant business, and restaurant business is just hard. And if you're like, I was 23, 24 at the time, like, my image was very different than, I mean, 40, but it's the same sort of fickleness as fashion. So
Yeah.
I just decided that that wasn't really where my authentic self was, and I just needed to do something else. So I started working at the yoga studio for free. Um, and somehow I manifested going to Bikram training, which is like $10,000. It's not easy. And not even just that, I manifested a job. I was working at Yankee Stadium bartending. I got like a job at Yankee Stadium bartending, where I would get paid my tips while I was in teacher training for 9 weeks. So I had a job when I came back. So the life
Nice.
universe was great. It just happened to do it. And once I became Bikram certified, because I mean, he's a dick, but the community at that point was amazing. Because this is 2009, 2010. um Literally, the doors of the universe open to the entire world. So when you become a teacher certified by that man, you have a community, a network around the world that is just so vast and so amazing, and everybody wants you to come teach. And the friends that you make at teacher training are like, please come visit. I had a girlfriend in Australia. It was like I spent 2 months in Australia living my best life, going and diving the reef, right? I went to South Africa, went to Europe, then I followed him around for a little bit just teaching yoga. And so the doors of becoming a yoga teacher just opened. And like, there's a lot of celebrities that come and practice Bikram yoga, or like the 26 and 2 now we call it, um, because it's so therapeutic for their body. So like, we're talking like professional athletes, like just people with a lot of brokenness in their bodies, because it helps with performance. So
Mhm.
I've had the most amazing clients. I've taught the most amazing people. You know, the list is beyond. Um, and I've been able to teach in the most epic spaces. So once I really got into the groove of teaching yoga, I just started teaching and traveling all over the world, you know, maintaining multiple, like, relationships is a thing for me. So I
Yeah.
maintained a lot of relationships with people all around the world. And, you know, it became just so just ridiculous. Like, where would I want to go visit? And then you would get like an apartment and, like, you know, friends and a community. And it was just like, it literally is just a drop in the bucket of, you think about a place and it's like, oh, well, of course they need a teacher. And the fact that I speak 2 languages is a big deal. And, you know, it's a commodity. And I personally love the practice because it helps with my body and all of the different ailments I have had in my life. And it, like, I want the hottest class, I want the longest class, I will bitch and moan the entire time, but I will take myself to that place,
Right.
because it's just like, and the practice itself is a disciplined practice. So you have people like I go to the teachers that call me out on my shit because you can see your shit, right? Um, so I just, like, and then, you know, I was in a, it was a toxic relationship. So it was just so easy to just run off and go teach yoga somewhere, or like go forget about the fact that I was in a toxic relationship. And then
Mm.
somewhere
Yeah.
along the way, probably around 2014, I went to do a training, a Jiva Mukti training, which is a vinyasa training. And I was in Costa Rica, and we were vegan, right? We were meditating and doing the whole thing. And I was reaching these like ecstatic states that were even higher than what I had achieved before. Like, I was talking to monkeys. Like, I could tell what a monkey, I was talking to butterflies and knew when it was about to rain. Like, having these amazing, you know, out of body living experiences, living in Costa Rica in the jungle, like on the beach, where, you know, we would all go and swim like naked in the ocean, right? It was just like, it was the most great experience, but it was just another level of yoga, another level of like like being able to chant and achieve these like higher states of consciousness and oneness with space was just so powerful to me that I was like, this is the rest of my life. Like, I don't care what I do in life, but I just need to be, yoga is my life. Like, it truly really just solidified that I needed more training, and I became more certified. Like, I've spent like a college tuition on yoga training.
Wow.
And I still get trained. Like, it's not like I've just stopped. I still go and I get trained, and I'm gonna go do a training soon, like this winter, with this woman that I that's my madrina for my moon dance. Just because it's just, it's, you can never stop learning. And that's what I love about yoga, is that it's not like, oh yeah, I'm achieved, I am a grandmaster, and like I'm enlightened and I don't need anything. No, like, there's just so much to it, and it's just always ebbing and flowing, and it meets people where they are. And I just want to be qualified to meet everyone that I can with
Mm.
everybody. And so when I went to that training, I realized that there was something that I wasn't getting from my Bikram yoga, or the 26 and 2 practice, and the current state that I was in, that I wanted to achieve more of. And then there was something in the veil of it too. So I had this girl, she sent me this National Geographic article of ayahuasca. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to experience. Like, that's how I want to enter it. That's what I want to do. I know that this is where I will find the answers of what I'm looking for. Um, and so I was nervous. Like, this is me, someone who doesn't have a problem going on a flight anywhere. But again, I would always go somewhere where I knew somebody. So I would always have a house. I would always have like a community. I would always have like a safe space. So it wasn't like I was just backpacking somewhere. And I
Right.
had spent my whole life that way. And I think at that point I was like 30. Um, and, but I was going to do ayahuasca in the jungle, like, was just crazy. Like, it was like, no, I don't think that that's something that I
Well, I mean, it's scary.
right. But like, I speak the language. It's not like,
Yeah, but you're going to do something. It's just like the psilocybin. It's terrifying because you don't know what you're about to face. You know you're about to face yourself, but you don't know in what capacity. And
right, right.
that's the hard part, is like what is gonna surface.
And
And
yeah. And so the guy was just a toxic relationship. Like when I in 2010, we both fessed up that we weren't being like truly like authentic with each other. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I've been hiding a child for a year. Like, what?
oh wow.
A whole family. Like, oh my god, a whole family. Okay.
Got an extra
Um,
one.
right. It was like, okay, but like I'm like, I love you, like I want to be with you. Let's work this out. And by 2014, when I had gone to that training, I was like, I'm not living my truth. Like I had been going back to bartending because he was a nightlife, so it was just so much easier to deal with his
Yep.
alcoholism and deal with the money, right? Because we're talking about big money. Um, and it was just easy. Like I could teach yoga, I could go travel, I could come back, and I could make $2,000 in like a night and just nothing, and
Right.
then go take these amazing vacations, right? Because it was my money. Like it wasn't anything that it was just a life that I was it was like a little rat race in my own cynical way. Um, but I was on a trip. I was on a vacation. I was at Angkor Wat, at the temples in Angkor Wat, and there's the Bhagavad Gita is one of the yoga is the texts of like, it's like sort of like the Bible of yoga. Like it's like
Okay.
the texts that
Sure.
talk about the philosophy, and they were on the walls of Angkor Wat. I forgot which temple it was, but
Where's that at?
Angkor Wat is in Cambodia.
Okay.
And this was my very first time going to a place. I was in Thailand, like literally, like I'm gonna do the backpacking thing, because it wasn't the backpacking thing. I was just in Thailand, like
Right.
trying to. I went to go to the training. I had met a girl. We were like following the thing, and somehow one of my girlfriends at that time, she was getting trained as a Thai masseuse, and I was trying to chase her and find her, but she just was whirling around Thailand. So I was like, oh, just stay at Angkor Wat. I will come find you. Just like stay there for a day. She didn't stay for a day. Like I ended up at Angkor Wat, but I was at Angkor Wat and I was reading the text, and there was this like voice, and I talk about it like a bird or like a consciousness, and it was like, look at you, you're in a third world country, don't know the language, and you're getting along well. Like, what? Why are you so scared to go do ayahuasca? I'm like, oh, well, I mean, like, scary shit. Like, okay, so all right. And then I started making deals, because you can make deals, right? And but you have to show up. Like you have to keep your end of the deal. If the deal is being made, it's a deal. And I was like, all right, well, I mean,
With
I have a
yourself or with them?
with my voices in my head, right?
Oh,
Like
okay. Yeah.
the voices in my
Yeah.
head.
Just
That
wanted to clarify that.
after you do plant medicine, right? You notice
Not
that
with
like
the
the
shaman.
voices are a
Yeah.
little. It's the medicine talking, but like at that point, it's the voices in my head.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm talking to myself completely. Like, what do you mean,
Right. Right. Right.
right? Um, and still maybe I talk to myself, I don't know, but like the voice in my head was a very intuitive voice. It was a very grounded voice, and it was like, what do you need to be able to do it? And I might insert right now that when my niece was born, my sister was 19 and pregnant. So in order for her to have the right upbringing, I bought a house with my mother, because my mother was displaced during Sandy, and she went through a divorce with my dad while I was in teacher training. So like there was a lot of drama going on, and I kept bartending not just to keep up with my lavish vacations, but also to be there for my family, right? To
Sure. Yep.
to to make sure that my niece had a home and a mortgage for like a good chunk of a decade. I did that. And so in this conversation with myself, I was like, all right, the house has to be paid. Like the mortgage has to be paid for me to like take a trip to Peru. I want to do a teaching tour all around Europe, and I want to be on the Mediterranean with on a yacht with some champagne. At that point, I'd never been on a yacht in my life, right? So I was like, I want a yacht and champagne for my birthday, and
Me too.
right, and like I want a teaching tour all around Europe. This was April, right? So I come home in April. I come home from this vacation, which mind you, at that point I was a full-time yoga teacher in New York City, so I was teaching like 10, 15 classes a week. I had taken a trip, I was bartending, like I had a lot on my plate. So when I came back into New York life, like, all right, I'm ready to start working again, start making money. But that trip, I got derailed like 3 different days because in Thailand there's just a lot of winds, especially down in the south. Like there's a lot of rain, and so hurricane
Mm.
stuff. So I had my trip of 20 hours took like almost a week to get back in that moment. And life didn't fall apart. Like I was able, my jobs were okay. Like the places that I was teaching at, they were like, yeah, we got you, no worries. Like just get home safe. And so it was kind of like, oh, okay, I work for myself. Right. That's right. Like this is good. And so I get home, and there's this girl had come taking my class, and she was from Spain, currently the one that I just came seeing in Spain. And she's like, "Oh my God, your class is amazing. Like you should come teach in Spain." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great place." She's like, "Yeah, we have a studio in Mallorca." I'm like, "Oh, Mallorca, what is that?" And she's like, "It's an island off of Spain." I'm like, "Oh, is that close to Ibiza?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's actually right next to Ibiza." I'm like, "Oh, I have friends in Ibiza. Like maybe that may be good. So there might be yachts there, right?" I was like, "That sounds like yeah, that sounds like that's a good aim. Yeah, let's figure that out." So I'm figuring it out, right? April. But by June, nothing was happening. So I was so like, whatever, it's just not gonna happen. Like, fuck ayahuasca, right? And then the week of my birthday's in July. The week of my birthday, like that Tuesday, my birthday had been like the Thursday or the Friday, whatever it was. I had a girlfriend. She's like, "Hey, do you want to come with me to the Amalfi Coast?" I was like, "Yes." Let me just
Um,
try to get everything covered. So
Amalfi Coast.
in Italy, the Amalfi,
Oh.
like Positano, Amalfi, like this the
Oh.
Ravello. It's quite a magical place. Very, very, very magical place. Long story short, I ended up in the Amalfi Coast with all of my classes covered, and I met not only not only an owner of a yacht, but the owner of the entire port in Positano. Like, so he gave us a ride home on this wonderful yacht with some amazing champagne, and it was like, oh, okay, all right, I see where this is going. And because the Amalfi Coast is so magical and beautiful, I was posting all of these wonderful pictures, so everybody that I knew that was in Europe saw my pictures and started inviting me to go teach for them. So that like spun my teaching tour that I of my dreams, and then Mallorca just sort of landed in there. So I curated this like August to September tour, and then when I was in Mallorca they were like, "But can you come back for October, the month of October?" So now I'm like 3 months in Europe, and I made sure that that September trip I would have an around the world ticket to get me into New York to like, get me organized to back to Europe, then to Peru, and then back to Europe again, and then back to New York. So it was an around the world ticket. Um, and like somewhere in Switzerland, on my way to Germany, something happened where like it was like life was questioning me and questioning my choices, because the place that I was going to, somebody had died in that space. And I don't know anything about ayahuasca. I don't know anything about going anywhere. I'm terrified as it is. And the place that I'm going to, someone's dying, and they're not texting me about the fact that there's somebody dead. They're texting me about the butterfly garden. I'm like, hey, but like, no, what the fuck? And so I decided not to go forth to that space in the jungle. where I was originally supposed to go. But
Okay.
somehow I found a full moon, super moon, lunar eclipse, blood moon ceremony on the Sunday of the Saturday that I landed in Peru, like in the Sacred Valley.
Mm,
And so, as life is, I ended up at that ceremony and I landed and they had a room, basically a little egg hut that was
mhm,
available on the shaman's property. So I was on the shaman's property. They gave me the space to be who I was, to do all the medicine work that I needed for the 2 weeks that I was there. And they didn't force their opinions or their beliefs on me. They gave me such space that I had my own space to connect to who I wanted to be. And it was so transformative. I realized how much trauma I had been holding. I had realized that the relationship that I was in just needed to end like ASAP. It didn't end ASAP, but it just needed to end. Like it was not
right.
in my best alignment. And then, just like, yoga, as soon as I got back into New York, I remember, I don't know if I had told you this before, but like I went to go bartend at the club that I was working at. And the day that I went to go bartend was like a Halloween party. But in New York, Halloween's a very big dress up thing and it's a very big event that people
Oh,
do. So it was a play party where we all had to sign these like forms of like, we wouldn't tell. I'm not telling anything about this play party. But I was like, what the fuck is my life? Like, people like in like those like chains and like just, it was a swingers thing, and it's the most beautiful, exquisite people with like the most epic creations, but you're just like, what did I just walk into? And it was like very clear to me that I had been on like this hamster wheel of life just for money. And like I was in like, even that play party was like, the tip was $50,000 for the house. So it was like one of those things where it's just like you're just, it's like and then I go and I spend the money on like bullshit, like fucking clothes or whatever, just to keep me in that because I know I'm gonna make it. And that's what ayahuasca taught me from the beginning, was like really live in integrity. Like after a
mm,
month or two being in New York, I can no
mhm,
longer bartend anymore. Like I I've helped out in like events that friends do, and like I can cater to things, but to stand behind a bar at a nightclub, it's like I want to rip my eyes out. Like I want to rip my eyes out. I don't care if you're giving me a shit ton of. I just can't do it. Like physically, it just, something inside of me feels like a caged animal, and I do not want to do it ever again. Like that was
right.
something I was just like,
Yep.
stop. That you're not living in integrity. And then so many doors opened where I ended up meeting a Colombian shaman, and he needed a translator, then he wanted an organizer, then I started forming communities with him, and I had all these people that would come, like all these doctors, because it was indigenous medicine. So it's a different vibration than just like a regular shaman that's coming in to serve it. It's like these people that I was working with were like at a level where they just wanted to command certain people to attract to their vibration. And so I, met people that opened up studies for the mushrooms in at Yale, right? Or I would meet people that were like the heads of like the MAPS doctors and stuff, like the trials and everything. So
Mm,
it just overlapped so much that I was somehow put in a space where I was at the forefront of a lot of things that were developing in psychedelic space. So much that, fast forward, my healing work, the breaking up, and organizing ceremonies, and I've organized a lot of ceremonies and with many different indigenous tribes, and I've gone back to the jungle, and like I've built houses for the indigenous tribes. I bring support for them in all of these different cultures and lineages. And specifically right now I'm building a project in Peru for solar power, to bring them help, because their food goes bad if they lose their power, if there's like floods and stuff. And
sure.
that for people that are famished and they need to eat, it's kind of hard, right? So it's kind of hard to even afford like $1 to to keep the light on if they can't afford to eat, right? Like
Right, right.
it's like my activation in the space. And this was something that I came very head on for, was it wasn't so much about like the hierarchy of this shaman versus this shaman, or this belief and this belief, because I personally don't, like, I've had lineages that I've followed to just get like trained and to be initiated in, and that's been powerful. But just like the yoga, I don't teach just one yoga. I teach universally what's in
Right.
front of me, and whatever can arrive at whatever space. And the indigenous cultures, they're so like, it's just so sad the way that they live. And they're and some of them, like, the reason why they're losing their their roots is because the children don't believe. Like, you go down to the
Yeah.
jungle and you'll see these kids that'll be watching like Transformers, right, on this TV with a giant antenna that's hopefully connected to like something so that they can get TV and they can watch it. But it's like they're watching Transformers with, like, what's her name? Megan Fox. Is it Megan Fox?
Yeah, Megan Fox.
Right. So you're watching like Transformer with Megan Fox, with like how gorgeous and beautiful she is, and like the beautiful cars and like the buildings and stuff, and they're just sitting there eating Cheetos or eating like food that they can't afford. Like,
Right.
with like it's like it's such a big disconnect. They're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Right? So
Yep.
it's like this, it's like a dream, right? It's a dream space, an intuitive space, that what they're doing and they're putting out in the world is something positive and amazing. But what they're actually seeing is like the way that we look at social media. It's an image that
Right.
is, it's hard, so there's a big disconnect. So helping tribes, or helping bring people down to the jungle, and is something that I'm very passionate about, because it keeps them well fed, and it keeps them, like, believing in what is being formed, and what's being, and I'm very much about giving back to the land. um because it's important to give back, especially because, like, down there in the Amazon, there's some of the most untapped natural resources, like oil. So you have big oil companies coming in to try to like take oil from and
Yeah.
like kill the crops, and so it becomes a whole can of worms, and so much stuff that we do not have time to talk about on this podcast. But it's
Right.
it's just sad.
Yeah, it
And
is sad.
so my activation to help was not only to bring consciousness and awareness to people and see how they healed, and I just got thrown into showing people how to heal, or how to hold space for them, like, just intuitively, because of, being a translator and being an organizer, and having people that were like going through really dark shit, like people with some heavy, heavy trauma, trying to help them out, right? And not having any qualification except for my yoga certification. It just became
Right.
real life experience. Um, and then somewhere around 2019, I was working at a space called the Assemblage, which was built off of an ayahuasca vision. Rodrigo Nino, he was dying of cancer, and he went to the jungle to heal, and he found this vision of this collective consciousness space in the city, and he built it, and I ended up working there. I was one of the last hires, and then the company funded, because obviously it was moving too big, too fast, too soon, and it needed to conserve. But it also just, he ended up dying during COVID. But
Hmm.
I was there in 2019, and I was in an accident where I got burned, and I was in ICU, second and third degree burns. And it was actually one of that the assemblage was one of the sites for the FDA trials for MAPS. So there was a lot of people coming in to do like the MDMA research,
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
So like they would do the clinical trials there, because it was that kind of space. But I got burned, and so I had to go heal. And in my healing process, I went and I started teaching yoga, like just full time to heal. And through that journey, I started really looking at my mental health stuff and working with my mental health stuff. And I got matched up with these doctors that somehow, it was the right time, because during COVID, it was hard at first to teach people yoga until it
Mm.
became privately done. Um, so I started working with doctors. Like, I started working in their back offices, and then I started building concierge services for them, and I started doing exposures, because they were in their little boxes on Zoom, but they needed people to go and do exposures real life in person. And like at that point, I'm in person with yoga. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, let's do these exposures with high risk like suicidality, high risk cutters, bipolar, dissociative people that would be dissociating themselves out of their body for hours and their parents couldn't get them back, and I would just try to do exposures to keep them grounded in real life. And I became so passionate about it, and I started seeing the connection between the psychosis that these people would have and that they need medication for on a daily basis, and the psychosis that we go through in ayahuasca or, mushrooms, right? And I started seeing the overlap and how my intuition or like my skill set in real life experience was paying off here. So I just became very much engrossed in the above ground world at the same time that I was doing organizing ceremonies. So it just became a thing, and like it is a thing, and that's been my experience. And now, somehow I got connected to the guys in Colorado that are doing legal stuff legally. I got connected to a church in
Mhm.
Massachusetts. He was doing stuff legally. So I started seeing the hope that there's a way to do the work that I'm doing, in an above ground model, and that's kind of where I'm putting my eggs towards,
Yeah.
um,
Towards
because
kind of this ranch and similar
yeah,
avenues.
projects, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not, the ranch is a great project and I love it, and they're great. It's not my ranch, right? So it's pouring into them what I see in the above ground space just in general, because I've been in it for what now 5 years,
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
also like people, because it no longer became about yoga, it became wellness at a certain point. So I have lots of friends that are opening up hotels that like they call me and they ask me to build out their wellness programs. They know that I'm
Mm.
working with at-risk mental health stuff, so they'll ask me to work for different projects on that. So it now just opened up an avenue that it's given me so much, and obviously I've gotten trained, like I've become a psychedelic integration coach, I've done harm reduction training, like I've done trainings in the actual space of like each doctor that I work with. They have their own
Mm.
sort of standard that they want me to train, HIPAA stuff, like all
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that. Within each range I go, and I like to learn, because I don't have a degree, but that's not like an associate's degree in fashion, but like I want to be able to have the right tools, guided by the right frame, to be the best of service, because my job is, or my life's work is, to be of service.
Right. Yeah. And you don't have to have a degree in this. I mean, the degree is hardship and suffering and navigation and
I
loving
mean,
people and
yeah, you have to be monitored. Like in the above ground model, like the FDA approval stuff, all that stuff. There's the clinicians and there's the MDs and stuff that are like
right.
in that space. And as long as I'm able to work under those teams, which I have a bunch of
Yes. Yep.
friends that all do that, I'm able to thrive in my role. And some of them tell me that I get away with more because I'm not I'm not I don't have a license, and I kind of enjoy it that way, because
Right.
I don't think I can live my most authentic truth if I'm not doing what my heart wants to do.
Some of that, like that authentic truth, is also challenging yourself and going outside your comfort zone
Yeah.
to, but what you entered into is that if you're doing that uncomfortable zone every day, you're not living who you are. And you should be entering into that place where life is not necessarily comfortable. There's discomfort, but there's joy in it. And you're
Right.
consistently learning from that. But you're navigating something that, like for me, the podcast is a passion. So I'm
Hmm.
navigating that passion. I don't make any money at it. I don't, and it's my passion. So maybe someday it will, and maybe someday it will be self-sustaining and it can help people. And that's the beautiful thing about it. My
Hmm.
passion can actually be something that is self-sustaining and does something for others. And then it allows me to enter into people's lives. So there's twofold there, that I get to do what I love to do, and that's provide space. And then it gets to provide
Right.
um, a means for those people to hopefully get help or or a friend gets help, or
Mhm.
whatever. So, and
Like,
then the other aspect of that is I get to do a job where I enjoy things, where I get to coach people in life and walk with them in dark places until they find light and see light in themselves. So there's a twofold.
But you didn't even know that was a job until
I
like
did
a
not
bit ago,
know.
right? So
Yeah.
you were like, those are two passions that kind of
Yeah.
um and I think that's where the work is, right? When you have to, so there's this beautiful modality. I love it. Like I truly use it for integration. At the house, there's probably a book. It's like if I brought it for an offering, it's called Gene Keys, Gene keys, like keys,
Okay.
because it's it's I'm gonna like insert it here because for me it was a powerful tool with understanding. So the idea is that it's based on the I Ching, on our birth and where we were in the planet of, or how the stars were aligned when we came into this world, but that all of us have 64 keys, like 64 gene keys within ourselves, that some are dormant, some are more pronounced than others, but each one of us have the key to unlock that reflection within each other. So like not all of us are going to be podcasters, not all of us are going to be yoga teachers, not all of us are going to be, doctors or engineers, whatever, but it's understanding what your life's work is, so that when you're in that lane, or like stewardship of navigating that lane, you can thrive. So for me, it's acts of service. Like my
Mm.
life's work is service. Like I've
Yep.
been a bartender, been a waitress, been a nanny. I love dogs, so I walk them all the time, like for fun. Like literally, people want to pay me to walk their dog or to babysit. I'm like, okay, you can pay me, but like, I just want to hang out with a pet because I don't have children, so I need a pet to just hang out with. And like, I've been flown places to like babysit pets, so it's like I've done a lot, but it's always been in service, which makes me thrive. And it doesn't shock me that I've ended up in these community spaces, creating safe space as a service to people. Like even
Right.
coaching and all that is a service. So
Yep.
I thrive within that service,
Yep.
right? That's my lane, that no matter what it looks like, right? It's ebb
Right.
and flowed, it's a service.
Yep.
Even when I did my fashion job, I was in love with fashion, but I felt like I just could not, like we're talking 2006, 2008, right? Right before the recession happened, where I was like selling clothes and like working, in the like in the, I was doing PR work and I was doing like marketing work. So I was in like the runway, like where the big tents are in New York City.
Hmm.
But I mean, it was fun because I was young and great, but it wasn't a service that I provide. So obviously at a certain point, it just felt like it was inauthentic to who I was.
Mm.
And I just didn't have that realization. I was just
Yeah.
showing up for a job, right?
Yeah.
That was probably one of the last jobs I actually had where it was like a job, where it felt like a job. Everything else from that point forward has been yoga, has been, the psychedelic world, has been even in the mental health field. It's been service,
Mm.
like truly, like authentically. And even in the mental health field, I'll show up for something and I'll be like, yeah, I'm happy to help, happy to like create whatever you need. And they're like, yeah, but we're going to create a lane where you actually can thrive versus you just doing admin stuff. Cause that's not like a thriving role that you want to do. Like you're going to do it
Right.
because it's a service role, but you're not excited about like putting data into a computer.
Right. Yeah. Some people are,
But you see, but that's exactly my point. It's that activation
Right.
of that. Like I just came from Spain where my homegirl literally loves to organize. She gave me like a 2-hour lecture on spreadsheets, and she was just like, it was like 2 a.m. and I'm like, you don't want to go to sleep? Like we're still here? Like this is free work, right? Like this is something that you're not getting paid. She's like, no, I love this. I love to organize stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's
Right. Like,
but that's her lane. That's where she thrives. That's how her
yeah.
brain functions and works. And
Yeah.
we go back to the part where it's like, if you're showing up for a dead end job where you're not feeling your most authentic self and you're just doing it to work, you're going to come off like this, like it's a weight on your shoulders because
Yeah.
there's something else that you want to do to serve the world where you're going to thrive. And coming back to the mushroom thing is like, most of the people that are going to those festivals are going to like Alex Grey Cosm, or going to, be fairies in a garden in some festival. They're doing it because that's where they're really living their truth.
Right. Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, I'm a fairy. I could be a masseuse during the day, but I'm a fairy now. Like,
Yeah.
this is, and I have all my fairy friends, and we're in the fairy woods, and we're like wearing our matching mushroom pajamas.
Yeah, I know them people.
It's great. It's great. And that's where everyone's light is shining. And so it doesn't matter what the work that they had to do to get there, right? Because that's the part where we're talking about trauma, and we're talking about like our inner revelations within ourselves to get to those places, to really stand in that truth, right? And then look at you, for example, how the universe gifted you this beautiful manifestation of something that was, it was like, if I could just get to that point, if I could be alive to get to that point, right?
Oh man, this is unbelievable, and it's not even that difficult to maintain. Like, it tries to derail me, but I'm like, I know what being derailed looks like.
Right.
I don't like it. So in this moment, in this problem, I'm just going to sit back, relax, and watch it unfold, and do what I can to alleviate some of those pains. But I can't do everything, and I don't know how things are going to work out in the end. And that's where I just sit back and I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. Like, I'm sitting on the train looking out the window at all the beauty and not worrying about the destination. Like, it's a whole different story now.
Yeah. So I was at an ayahuasca weekend this weekend.
Oh,
you guys
wow.
I had an ayahuasca weekend with this woman that I'm being mentored with. I love her. I'm obsessed with her. She's got like hotels, so she's got the hospitality thing on lock. She creates sacred spaces. She used to do these beautiful, like, she used to do movie sets. Like, she used to design movie sets. So her eye is like, and her partner, her husband, they're amazing. I wish I could plug them if it was a legal world.
Yeah,
but I can't. So they're the most amazing thing ever. And she's just, I found them as I was traveling around this year, and she's just been so open to like just showing me her ways, and ways that like, so I was looking for panchakarma and Ayurveda, which is an Indian philosophy, because I'm yoga, panchakarma, and Ayurveda. Ayurveda is like ancient technology to how, because the concept is that we all have different doshas and different Ayurvedic constitutions that all can be dormant. There's 3 of them. And if you don't have them in balance, your life force is in balance. So you basically self-study, because the idea is that eventually, in the ancient times, when there's harmony and peace and everybody was, able to harmonize with nature, and like technology wasn't a thing, you don't need medicine. You just balance your life out, and you were able to attune yourself to a higher frequency, like a baby, like just like immediately.
Do you think humanity's ever been there in that harmony?
So you're talking to a yogi, right? So you're talking to someone who's been studying yoga for a really long time. And the story goes that there was this place in the Indus River that existed once upon a time, where there was no war, there was no, and we're talking like Vedic ancient philosophy, right? There was no war, there was no famine, there was no, a time where everything was balanced in life, right? So these Vedic people wanted to document this, to make sure that as a humanity, and as, life would enter and come, that we would remember how to harmonize with the trees, with the birds, with the sun, right? The sun salutations, the moon and the stars. And because at all times, even right now in these times, we are constantly trying to find harmony and balance within ourselves, to balance with the external force of nature, right? Of the moon, of the stars, of the catastrophic events. as humans, we create more catastrophic events that create, disperse and duality within ourselves because we haven't mastered ourselves. So I do believe there was a time where there was harmony and, everything was balanced. But I think that time, it's evolved into different formats of consciousness as we become more technology based and as we get more like rapidly moving, but then we get more disconnected from ourselves, then thus more disconnected from the world around us, from each other. So that's where we have to understand where we've gone wrong and self study and use plant medicine or use, to go back to the traumas and stuff like that that have existed. But
So it's
yeah,
kind of like, I mean, not to be facetious, but it's kind of like being a monk. I mean,
yeah, I
it's
mean, so
entering into a mindset of peace and tranquility, regardless of
yeah.
the chaos. And
But if you want to put it in that box, yes. And traditionally, yoga teachers or people that taught yoga in like ancient times, they were like the priests of the town. They didn't have to work. They were just
yeah,
there to like be channeling philosophy, right? Channeling, the and there are like if you look at the shamans or like modern day shamanism, like their job is just to bring consciousness into humanity. So there are groups of, and they usually live very like impoverishly because they're
right,
not focusing on the money aspect of it. They're not like the true shamans, like true shamanism, like that, like the guy that I go sit with in Peru, that like I go sit in silence. He's like 80, missing teeth, like probably doesn't shower every day, right? 'Cause they don't have running water. And he is just there to just hold space to like close and to guard your soul. So he's not even on planet Earth. He's just and he lives in a
right,
hut, right? Fighting famine and electricity and floods and all of that shit. But he's not focusing like he's focusing on bettering his people with like the tools and technology that he has with the people that come in like us our westerners that come in to get healed or to like learn, right? He's
hmm,
focusing on helping us become more conscious of the environment, but he's not focusing on like, oh yeah, I've got to like charge these guys. Like, I mean, the diet is like
right,
what? It's
right,
it's nothing. Like it's a $30 a day kind of experience, but like you got to get yourself down to Peru, down to Amazon jungle, down like the creepy fucking the river
yeah,
with the weird shit where you gotta bring your own food, your own like bottled water because you might actually get dengue and like like something might attack you. Like you're gonna go at your own risk, so there's no protection. But it's my point is those masters or maestros, as they're called, that are just literally about bringing consciousness into the world. They're not thinking about making $1 million off of this.
right, yeah. And most people outside this Western thought process, I won't say Western world because there's a Western thought process even in the European world,
Right.
is, outside of that, being poor is not the worst thing in the world. Like, I'm a poor man and I'm probably the happiest I've ever been in my life. So there's something about this journey where
Like,
monetary things have very little value. It's the
right.
spiritual aspect of walking through life and watching it unfold and then getting to be an observer of that, but also help people along the way and observing that and watching their lives unfold. Just because you've entered into this place of sanctuary and solitude and peace in the midst of chaos, and you get to do it in a way that really impacts people and inspires people, with a lifestyle of consistent, um, spirituality, and not even preaching that spirituality. It's you're entering, you've entered into a place where you're always in connection with your spiritual self,
And the
and
world around you.
the world around you is affected by that. That's
But
where it's,
also you live in harmony and
yeah,
balance with things as is.
yeah,
So, for example, the mushrooms are technology. the ayahuasca is a technology. Ayurveda and panchakarma kind of practices as well is a technology. Like yoga is a very powerful technology that took me to the states that I've been in psychedelic space even before I found psychedelics. Like I was in, those spaces. So personally, because I study it, I knew that this technology of Ayurveda and like going to do like a panchakarma, which is a very big deal, um, is a technology that I wanted to find. And there are, so once I found my friend who's mentoring me, and or like I'm just taking a mentorship by just showing up every fucking time I can. Um, I found another woman when I went to do the diet, and she's doing the same thing, and she's like from Canada. I found her in Peru, and she's doing panchakarma ayahuasca situation where it's like, wow, this is like beyond shamanism or beyond, this, because it's, you have these people that are waking up to this kind of technology,
Yeah.
to putting it together, because then it's a whole package.
Right.
Like I literally had come home from Spain where I'd been eating tapas and drinking wine, and I went for this weekend and I felt not only the ayahuasca, but also the food and the way that we were eating, and the way that we were eating with like the Ayurveda, like just very clean, very just like into moving your gut, that like my entire colon had an experience, right? But also but also my kidneys, right? Because then they give massages during the weekend. So like my kidneys, my channels, like everything, where I was able to, and then the moon, it was like, wow, like
My moon and the moon.
right. It's like I was in it. My period was there too with the moon. So I was like, I had this whole thing where I walked out like, wow, such a sunny day. I saw hummingbirds. I was like, this is like the Garden of Eden. Life is beautiful. Fuck everything else. Like, I am in complete harmony.
Man.
Like I personally, I like to, I'm leaning towards more helping people in journey towards like end of life stuff than like,
Really?
yeah, like I'm more, that's something that like makes my heart happy, versus like, let me just have everybody, like I'd rather teach everybody yoga and like be a yoga teacher for everybody in every range of person. But it takes a lot out of you to journey and to hold space for people to journey. And I want to give that space to people that are fighting the end of their lives. Like that's where my heart feels like I won't get annoyed.
Well,
I mean,
yeah. I mean,
like
there's yeah.
one of the reasons why you were so powerful in my life, or so impactful in the experience of having you come to the ranch, was because you were literally fighting the end of your life. And so that for me, it was like, I didn't want to save you because I don't want to save anybody, right? But I wanted you to fight for your life, or at least fight to the point where you knew that you had the power within you to choose.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes me the most proud to see your transformation, because I saw that you chose, right? I saw the impact it had on you. I saw the power that it had on you. I went to show up for your retreat specifically, not just because of you, but because that was a theme in the actual space of our retreat
Yeah.
that we did,
It,
right?
it was. It was very deep in the suicidal field. I
And
didn't realize that
and
until we started telling our stories. Yeah.
and that was like my proudest moment, to see, not my proudest moment, but like to see you light up and see that like there was a room full of people looking back at you with the same stuff.
Yeah.
Was like it was like one of those moments where I was like, okay, Dimitra, I can breathe. Like, I'm okay. And
Right.
and what most of you guys don't know is that like I gave up a couple of different opportunities to be there. That particular weekend, I was supposed to do a retreat in Puerto Rico. I was supposed to do a retreat in the retreat in Colorado. I think there was a moon dance as well, and there was something else that I was supposed to be at. And then I had gotten offered a contract to do another event, but because I was going to do Good Ranch, I was not going to be able to do that contract. So I passed on the money opportunity to just be at the Do Good Ranch. for that weekend. Not because, anybody owes me anything, but it was just, that was something that I wanted to
Right.
show up for. I was
Right.
like, I want to be there. I want to make sure that I know what's going on. Like, I've vetted all of these people personally. I've walked through all of their stuff personally. I went through my own process with everybody. I want to be there to hold the space with them. And I'm not facilitating. Like, I told everybody I did not want to facilitate. I facilitated in my own way because of just being
Sure.
there. That's how you show up. But I wanted to just make sure that I was there for all of you guys. And it's I mean, it's still going. Like, the group chat is still
Oh my
popping,
gosh. It's
right? Like,
unbelievable.
it's one of those things that it makes my heart feel whole. And it makes me re-believe for the work that I do and why I want to do it in a specific space.
Right. Right.
Because
Yeah, it's
I've
really
worked.
incredible that people are, and even people that haven't been fully involved are getting more involved in the chat, and sharing more of their newfound experience and newfound life, and it's really powerful and incredible. And that's what I found out this weekend, doing that at the festival and on the panel, is how impacted not just the people that have done it, but the lives that we impact post journey and post healing, and or as we're healing. It's there's an attraction that's happening that's really, it's beautiful in so many respects. So I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
No, no, no. And that's exactly it. It's that, like, we we show up for the things that we're supposed to show up for. We find alignment in the places that we're
Mm,
supposed to be in, period. Like, everything is curated in a very magical way. There's some of us in the background that are, like, gently pushing things to go in directions that it
right.
should, but everything is supposed to be, because we're all feeling in alignment and in attunement to where it feels the most, you know, perfect place to be. And
Mm,
that is because there's a bigger, I don't know if you want to call it, like, um not a synergy, but like, it's almost like a bigger plan, or a bigger, like, orchestra, or something's being orchestrated much bigger than what we
yeah.
know, what we have, because
Yeah.
that's where we'll be able to give back to the greater whole.
Right. Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how have psychedelics changed your life?
I mean, psychedelics continue to change my life, because it's not like I mean, my mind is an overactive mind. I do think a lot. I do still, like, suicide ideation was something that I experienced a couple times in my life, right? Like, until psychedelics really showed me, like, even the first time I did psychedelics, I was really suicidal. Like, the first time I did ayahuasca, I was really suicidal
Hmm.
when I went to that space. And I realized that the reason why I was so suicidal, or the reason why the people that were in my life at that time, two of my friends, Mike and Allie, they made me feel safe. And I was so in love with them as a friends, because they made me feel safe, and they made me feel like I had never felt safe in my life until that point.
Hmm.
And especially with my relationship, right? Being abusive, and like the toxicity of that relationship, how my nervous system was just so set to being, in that fight or flight, that I didn't know I could feel safe. And then feeling safe with ayahuasca in an 80-person ceremony in the Peru, right? Like, it
Oh
was,
wow,
I didn't know anybody. I just was there by myself, right? Like, with 80 people, just doing this
that's
thing, and like,
scary.
oh, shit, okay. But feeling whole and safe, and then feeling re-inspired. And then, like, all of the, like, because I've been in many different circles. I've done it a lot of times. I've organized a lot of things, but it's being in those spaces where, like, there is a moment of of doubt, where you doubt your own intuition. You doubt, like, I've doubted plant medicine as well, many times, because I'm like, why am I still fucking single if I've done all this work, right? Like, it's like, fuck you, plant medicine. Why am I? It's that stuff, right? It's like the anger, but then it's like, oh no, I gotta, obviously still got to do work. Obviously, I'm still working on shit. Um, And then, weekends, like the time that I had those second and third degree burns and I was in ICU, like I healed my burns and I healed my my life and went back to teaching yoga in 2019 because of, or like fully immersed myself in that because of plant medicine. Like I was suicidal
Mm,
looking for a place to hide my body because I was, because the opioids that they gave me to like scrape my skin off from the burns that they had to heal was so low that like I didn't know how to get myself up. And then, even this year, like going to Peru and believing in myself and re-believing in plant medicine and in isolation. And it was just like reinstating things that you forget. And
yeah.
because the trauma is so expansive, like I've been through so much. I've been through abuse as a child, right? I've been through rape. I've been through, shamanism, the bullshit wars. I've been through like, systemic racism. I've been through
Mm,
losing like a lot of bullshit, just abuse verbally, like, and even just continuing to like just keep going is exhausting.
yeah.
Um, but it's the work, right? And so what plant medicine does is it shows you through your integration, where you're holding that anger,
Yeah.
what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it humbles you. Like I was, even last week when I went into ceremony, I was angry over a few things, like just in general about work and stuff. And it showed me compassion, not only with myself, but just like how to have compassion, you know, because obviously the ranch is great, but it's all masculine containers. So like
It
my,
is.
so
It
being a
is.
female in the masculine container gets you pushed around a little bit, which is fine. Like it's not like they're abusive. It's not like they're,
Oh,
like
no, no.
it's none of that. But it's just like I forget that I'm a woman and that I get my feelings hurt and I need to talk about my feelings to the guys. Be
Yeah.
like, hi. So I'm a girl.
But there's some of the softest, hardest men I've ever met in my life. Like they're they're s- they're the most formidably trained. I don't hate to put it this way, but formidably trained killers in the world, and they're some of the most gentle, kindest, accepting men I've ever met in my life. Like I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Right, but then there's certain things that you have to hold them accountable to, and that's when it's like
Yeah.
that's when like it becomes I have to step into my masculine, which I don't want to, right? Like
Right.
I would rather that to just be like this little fairy bunny to just be like
Yeah.
bathe. But I'm working on a team where I'm supposed to bring my experience and try to not, you know, and try to be as
Well, I mean, dealing with military and professional athletes and first responders, there's certain like mental toughness that has to happen for them to function and be at the top of their game on a
100%.
consistent basis, and then they're trying to like let all that go in an instant, and it's very, very
Right,
difficult. So yeah, I
right.
understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's no fault to anybody because obviously we're
Right.
all just we're standing in our authentic truths, right? So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like, yeah, I went into ceremony just at a point where I was just like, I need to just not have to feel like I'm always just like treading water to
Yeah.
like certain situations. And not feel like I have to hold my voice either.
Yeah.
Like I do, but like it's exhausting. So you doubt yourself, you doubt, because I mean, like any woman, we have, especially like a businesswoman or like people that are type A, strong female alphas, like we step into our masculine super easy. Do I
Right.
really want to? Do I really fucking want to? No. I want to be like,
Well, and it's not on the other side of that. I needed the women that were here.
Mhm.
If it wasn't for their energy, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am.
Yeah.
You know, if
Yeah.
I don't want to go into it because it's been an emotional day. I listened to another story today that was, John's, and
Yeah.
tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I needed that energy to realize that it wasn't mine to carry anymore. And even some of the women were like, I needed the men, that masculine energy to bring up that darkness that has been so embedded in me for
Yeah.
so long that I buried because of having to be strong. And it was an allowance of release for some of them, which was awesome. Like it I see one of them changing every day. And it's, well, two of them. It's just a beautiful thing to watch. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's actually it's the power of the work. It's to see transformation right then in front of you, and to know that they're really striving to put forth their work, their
yeah,
effort. I honestly didn't, so I did all the plant medicine in the world, but then I was doing it for work and I never integrated. And until I started really integrating my ceremonies, right, and really integrating and like sitting with myself, right, it took that burn accident for me to like be like, I've fallen on a waterfall and had to be in a wheelchair. I've gotten concussions. I've literally like the first time I went to Colorado, I fell on a rock, like two black eyes. Like I have that thing where it's like I just keep pounding myself. But it took me being in ICU for 10 days in the burn unit for me to be like, you know, maybe I need to like sit with my shit, right? Maybe I need to unpack my mom stuff, because it's not the thing about like family stuff, right? Like unpacking stuff with mom is that I'm still unpacking it even if I've unpacked it, right?
right,
Like I'm my mom is not going to change. She's who she is. And so
right.
my job is to dig deep so that the boundaries are there, so that I'm standing in my truth and I'm still loving her from it, right? And that I can really like look at certain things with my dad or like my sister or even my niece, who I love her and she loves me very much, but because the dynamic in the family is very transactional, it's very transactional for her, and she knows how to like hide behind that.
Hmm.
So it's being okay with everybody exactly as they are. And
Yes.
because when you get into the healing, you're like, oh my God, everybody's got to heal. Everybody's got to try this thing and everybody's got to do it. And like, we're all can kumbaya together, but like, they don't, they don't want to. In Spanish culture and Latino culture, drugs are really bad. Like we have a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
poverty,
Yeah.
right? We have a lot of third world poverty. We have a lot of people living on the street. And then the way that they live on the street is that they will smoke crack or like the glue. They'll inhale the glue so they don't have to be hungry. And so any type of substance, whether it be marijuana, right? Because even open heart surgeons have asked me to do studies with them in Colombia. They, because of the stigma, they can't do open heart surgery psychosis studies with marijuana because marijuana
Mm.
is a big stigma, right? So it's like, let alone fucking ayahuasca or like forget about
Oh
mushrooms.
yeah. Yep.
It's just so the work is in doing it yourself so that you can continue to unfold and unravel, and then still be okay with things exactly as they are. Not that they're going to be rose colored, or not that they're going to be anything, you know, crazy, but I think it's just continuing to do the work. And the ranch does still offer that space where the guys are still doing the work. The guys are still
Yep.
figuring it out.
Yep. Yeah.
So
The
they're
post work for me has been, I mean, just valuable. Like
Mhm.
I didn't stop. Yeah. As soon as my fuse got lit, I've just been moving forward, and even through some of the bad days, it's like, okay, it's just a bad day. It's like no big deal. Just feel it, let it pass through, and move on.
Yeah,
It's a very very different. Like it doesn't get to harbor in the house anymore.
yeah,
It doesn't have a bed to sleep in,
yeah.
so it doesn't get to stay for very long. A few minutes to an hour maybe, and that's it. And then it's on to let's solve the problem. So the thought process is very very different for me now, which is fascinating. I could never get past that barrier of improving my life because the rug would always get pulled. And it doesn't matter if it gets pulled now. I'm strong. Like I am a man that can, like, I'll get right back up. I don't need to rest. I'm good. Like, pull the rug, I'll just reroute, you know? And that's a very different thought process than, oh, well, the rug got pulled, it's time to take my life. Like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and that's my default is I don't belong here, and I am no good. And look at this is the evidence that proves that, and all that is lies. All of it was lies. It's like, no, you have the ability, the power, the fortitude, the spiritual life, like you are capable, and that's what it showed me. I mean, I was beaten down for so many years of my life, and then the evidence proved that. But it, even though the evidence is still, like, it looks like it's there, it's not the same. It's not sending the same message. It's saying, yeah, you're at the bottom, and this is pretty damn cool, isn't it?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, this is. I get to watch everything unfold from this point on, and I get to see what I become from this point on,
Mm-hmm.
and how I interact with people, and how I love people, and how they love me, and how, like, I get to experience life in its fullest, and I get to start at the bottom. I think that's so beautiful. Like, sure, I would like some padding, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. I think
Just-
that's the exact thing is that like plant medicine shows you that like anything that you've gone through, it's a teacher to show you where you're supposed to be, and that like no matter what adversity you're going through, it's like everything that I've gone through in my life, I'm grateful for. Like I give thanks for.
yes.
Even still, I'm like, okay, yeah, that sucks, but sure, like I get it. I need to get this pattern repeated so that I can fucking get enough strength and stamina to just keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. That's one of the things I realized before the medicine was that everything that's ever happened to me made me what I am, and maybe I should just like who I am. And I'm glad for everything that's ever happened to me, because I wouldn't want to be anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the suffering that I've experienced, I'm still sane, I'm still coherent, I'm still, I'm not fully healthy, I'm diabetic, but I I'm 54 years old and I'm hiking at 12.4. So, I mean, I'm like, that's pretty damn good, and I'm pretty happy about that. And I had to rest for a couple days and been tired for a couple days. It's so worth it. So worth it.
Yeah.
Like, the best thing I've done in my life is go frolic in the woods looking for mushrooms.
Mushrooms.
Yeah,
It's great.
seriously, like, not even like magic mushrooms, just medicinal mushrooms, like medicine for people for cancer or sleep or anxiety. And it's like, there's these compounds in these things that are natural, that we don't have to rely on the pharma to
Right.
provide, because it's all there's. If you want something to sleep, you don't have to take another one to counteract that. It
Right.
processes through your body, and you naturally, and then you're good to go the next day. You're relaxed.
Right.
This,
The when I started studying herbalism, there was this thing like there's these plants, right? It's adaptogens, right? So I would always be so fascinated with the fact that these adaptogens would have such smart technology that they would go into the mitochondria of your cell, be like, okay, this is oxidized, like suck it out and then like find your balance. And it's so different for every single one of us. And the mushrooms are in that similar way where they have their intelligence and they come into our bodies and they work with our technology so that this way it's a collaboration basically for
yeah,
health and healing. But you have to have the technology or the thought process to want to go there versus it just
yes,
like, oh, I'm just going to take a pill and it's going to knock me out. Like I want a pill
right,
to knock me the fuck out. Like I take magnesium and it puts me to sleep, but because I have now decided that magnesium in my brain is my sleeping pill. But it's magnesium, right? It's like
fair.
instead of being like, oh, I don't know what the sleeping pills are. I haven't,
I don't either.
right? Something,
Yeah, I
something.
have no idea. So we're gonna get closed up here, but is there anything that you would like to leave a note on, like any advice or experience that you would like to leave somebody with? something that's profound to you?
I mean, I think what's so profound about this work or about this space, or it's developing the intuition, or developing the voice, or like strengthening the voice of the intuition that we have already within us, that we doubt every single day because so many external forces are having us doubt, or having projecting their own beliefs. Same as what I'm doing currently, trying to project my message, right? It's
Right.
You have so many different ways of stimulating your mind and your body that take you away from your voice. And so with plant medicine, it develops that internal voice, or that the medicine, right, that allows you to connect deeper to your intuition, that connects you to source consciousness, which is everything around you, the world, the birds, the trees, so that you can find where there's harmony within your life. And where
Mm.
there's disharmony, that's where the work is, right? That's where the integration is for you to develop the strength and the valor, or the strength that you need to let go of the old beliefs or anything that's holding you back. And so, hold on to things that feel more in alignment, um, because that's where you'll find strength, no matter what the trial or tribulation that you're going through is. Because sometimes that dark place, it's hard to listen, but that's when we're the most attuned. That's when we're the most humbled and most receptive to being able to be like, okay, I'm breaking open to listen to where my life is supposed to be, because this is obviously not it.
Right.
This is some bullshit. This is the bullshit part. Like,
Right.
where the fuck is the intuition part that, like,
Right. Right.
but that's what gets us there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being on the podcast and just sharing your knowledge and your love and your kindness and your spirit. I mean, it's been great to talk to you. It's always great to talk to you. But yeah, look forward to maybe doing another sometime and following your journeys. So,
I'm
Yvette, thank you so
proud of you.
much.
So proud of you, Britton. So
Thank you
proud.
so much. It's a lot of belief from other people kept me alive, and that was one of you. So, I was part of you. So, yeah, thank you very much. And we'll see you on the good side.
Yeah. Amazing.